My name is Roger Hobbs. I'm the president and owner of Mack Corporation. We're going to give you a little history about how Mack came to be. I was a young man living in the hills of eastern Kentucky, going to college. My goal was to be a high school basketball coach and teach political science. I'd actually played college basketball at Southeast Community College. At the end of my sophomore year, I needed to make money to transfer to University of Kentucky. I did not want to work in the coal mines. So my stepfather, who lived in Kansas City, Missouri, I called him and said, "Hey, can you get me a summer job?" So he got me a job where he worked at a company that ironically made roll-off containers. My first job was running a torch and cutting parts out, like hinges and bogey wheels and things of that sort. As time went by, I saw the big money to be made was in welding. So I went back at night and learned how to welding scrap metal together. As time went on, I was promoted to lead man. Well, I had only been there a short time, and my wife called and said she was pregnant. So I said, "Oh, we'll drop out of college and we'll save her money, have the baby, and go back to school." There was a little thing called Vietnam going on. So I lost my student deferment and I got drafted. So, kind of to make that long story short, after 2 years of being in the Army, now I've got two kids. So I go back and I go to work at the same company in Kansas City building roll off containers. I worked my way up from lead man to foreman to actually running the shop as plant manager. And then the sales manager quit and I got promoted into sales because being the plant manager, I knew all the customers. So we wanted to expand our business. So I started calling on different cities in the Midwest. And I set up a dealer in Indiana called Reese Equipment. Typical salesman, distributor conversation. You aren't selling enough. They're complaining that it costs too much to truck it out of Kansas City. So I said, "Oh, this would be the place to start a container company." And the guy says, "What do you mean?" I said, "Hey, we got Louisville, we got Chicago, we got St. Louis, we got Indianapolis, we got Columbus, Cincinnati. We're in the Midwest." So the guy says, "I wouldn't mind talking to you about that." So I said, "Okay." So I'm driving back. While I'm on the road, that company sold that I worked for in Kansas City. So I'm thinking, I got a bullseye on my back. They'll bring their own people in. So I call him up and say, "Hey, are you interested?" And he said, "Yes, do a projection." So back then there was no fax machines. I took a piece of 8 by 11 paper and wrote down I need 4 welding machines, a shear, a brake. And my brother and I will come over and find some people, find a building, set the place up. So I found this building. We're still in the original building that we started in 1975. And the old gentleman that owned this building, I rented half of it. And he took a big tarp and he pulled across half of the plant and said, "Hey, if I catch you on the other side, I'm raising your rent." So, but he turned out to be a godsend. He actually sold me the building in 1987 after I'd been here 12 years and charged me 4% interest. So, God bless him. So, my brother and I, whose name is David Hobbs, came with me. He worked with me in Kansas City. Well, the time being while we were getting ready to set this up, we were telling everybody we were going to be Mid-America Containers. I said, just call us Mack for short. So when we go down to incorporate, somebody else already had the name Mid-America Containers. So I said, well, we'll just incorporate Mack because we've been telling everybody to call us that. So originally, our goal was, hey, build one container a day and we'll make a great living. So we would cut the metal, bend the metal, weld it together, my brother and I, and we built one container a day. I'd get on the phone in the afternoon and try to sell it. So that was in 1975. So as time went by, obviously you can't stay the same, you have to grow. So we started expanding. And in 1984, we also we diversified and we got into the compactor rental business. We started a rental company called Hobbs Equipment, which also helped Mack because everything that Hobbs Equipment bought Mack Manufactured. So that went really well. I ran the manufacturing company. Kay ran the rental company. So we grew and grew, and then we decided to expand more, and we started building front load containers. We didn't want to do it, but a company here in town converted from rear load cans to front load cans. So their first order was like for 2,000 cans. I said, I'm in the front load business. So we started doing that. And then in the mid 90s, my son and my daughter were, the daughter was working at Hobbs Equipment. Ray was working with me. And he comes to me and says, Dad, why aren't you expanding the rental business? I said, I don't have time, son. He said, well, I do. I said, well, great. Then you start your own business. There again, everything that he purchased came from me. So that pretty well doubled, tripled our growth. So we now have been in business 50 years from I'd say a meager beginning of maybe 6 employees. We now have 160. We are a family operation. We have the third generation now pretty well taken over. My grandson Jake Hobbs and my grandson Raider Hobbs. And then the 2 granddaughters work out at the rental companies, which they have now sold to a company called Compactor Rentals of America. So today we probably manufacture well over 100 containers, roll-off containers a week, plus numerous front-load containers, and now we manufacture stationary compactors, self-contained compactors, apartment compactors. We have now reached all 50 states, and that is a direct contribution of my grandsons. We just shipped our first equipment to Alaska. We also shipped to Hawaii. So we have now done all the 50 states, so it's pretty ironic. 50 years in business, 50 states. And this has all been a result of how we care about our customers too. Any complaint they have, we address immediately. Fortunately, we don't have a lot of complaints, but we're like everybody else. We do make mistakes. We've never pretended to be perfect, but in our opinion, we build the best container in the industry. And we have many, many testimonials from customers throughout all the years. And we still have relationships with people that we started with 50 years ago. I dealt with their fathers, their grandfathers, and now we're dealing with their grandsons, and they're dealing with my grandsons. So now you know a little story about Mack Corporation and how we came to be. But we truly know deep in our hearts that we would not be successful without our customers. And I'm talking about large and small. They've been very loyal to us. We try to return their loyalty by giving them a good product at a very fair price. And if anyone is looking for a quality container company, don't forget to name Mack Corporation. Hey, a special thank you to Bruno the Wonder Dog. Everybody loves Bruno, and whenever we go somewhere, if Bruno's not with me, they don't say, hi, Roger. They say, where's Bruno? So here's the man of the hour, Bruno the Rocket Hobbs.